As the Santa Ana winds picked up again in California, residents braced for more damage from the deadly fires. The Woolsey fire has forced thousands of people to evacuate their homes in Southern California. At least 3 firefighters have been injured fighting the Woolsey fire. CBS News correspondent Jamie Yuccas has the latest on efforts to contain the fire in the south of the state.
In just a matter of minutes, a spot fire mushroomed into this towering inferno. It was an eerie reminder to residents down below that the devastating Woolsey fire isn't over yet.
We start seeing flames come down there, we're out of here.
A mandatory evacuation had people scrambling just outside of Los Angeles. Most were only able to return to their homes yesterday after fire burned through their neighborhoods over the weekend.
We see this huge, fire here, so it's like we're not getting a break.
Fire crews quickly swooped in.
This firefight is now primarily from the air. Each one of those helicopters can drop up to 3,000 gallons of water on the fire at a time.
Erratic winds, steep terrain, and so nobody's safe when we have winds like this.
The Woolsey fire is now more than 96,000 acres. That's roughly the size of Denver. Elaine, rain is in the forecast, but rainfall on these burned out hillsides can lead to mudslides.
All right, Jamie Yuccas, thank you. And joining me now is CBS News contributing meteorologist Jeff Berardelli. Jeff, these images are just so devastating. What is the latest forecast? Are conditions looking like they'll get better over the next few days?
Yes, so certainly in Central Central California, things are starting to look better right now. Winds have already weakened, winds have come down, so that's good news. Once you get into the southern part of California, we still are dealing with these really strong gusty winds for about the next 24 hours or so. Where you see the red shading there, that's where the fire danger is the highest on the graphic. So especially in the ridges, in the canyons, where the winds are the strongest generally. Relative humidities are extremely low, and they're likely going to stay low at least for the next couple of days. And the wind gusts, they're going to probably stay high at least through tomorrow, but then the wind gusts will start to decrease a little bit towards the end of the week, and once that happens, conditions will definitely start to get better. So it really is just another one day or so of really tough conditions in Southern California, and then it'll gradually get better as the week goes on.
And you have rain coming in next week or over the next few days?
Yeah, so this is the best news of all. By the middle of next week, it looks to be, and it's still 7-8 days out, but next Wednesday we are targeting the possibility of a storm moving in and some decent rainfall possibly moving in. But again, I'll emphasize possibly just because it is so far out, things could change, but any hope is hope, and it's good hope.
We, of course, know that the fire itself poses a tremendous risk for people, but what about smoke? You see those pictures, and you can't help but notice, obviously, how the smoke really just fills the air there.
Yeah, so we have a couple of graphics to show you. One of those is an animation of how smoky it's going to be for the next 24 hours or so. There's just smoke in so much of California. It really is encompassing about, let's say, 2/3 of the state right now. And if you look at the amount of smoke wave days that we've seen, they have increased a lot in the American West, as you can see. Smoke, the particulates we're talking about are about a quarter of the size of dust. You can't even see them, but they get in your lungs, they get deep inside your bloodstream, and they can cause some major health impacts if you get exposed to it for long periods of time, and if you're especially susceptible. So if you're young, children, the elderly, people with asthma, you can really start to see some adverse effects, especially lung disease and heart disease from the smoke, and you can see those pictures of the smoke. I mean, it's unbelievable seeing some of the smoke emanating from the fires in Southern and Central California.
And a question that people continue to ask as we look at these images is how much of this can be attributed to climate change?
Well, there have been a lot of studies on this, and if you think about climate change and the impacts of climate change, one of the most direct impacts actually is wildfires. In fact, the National Climate Assessment, the United States, the government puts out this National Climate Assessment. The most recent one attributed more than 50% of the increase in burned area in the West to climate change. So it's drier. It's warmer. We see more evaporation. We see less snowpack in the mountains. There's less water available. And so we've seen a tripling in the amount of fires, large fires, since the 1970s. So it's an incredible stat, literally 3 times the amount of large fires since the 1970s. We've also seen the fire season expand by 3 to 4 months. So it's now 3 to 4 months longer than it used to be. This gives you an idea of just small, subtle changes to the everyday person have a tremendous impact. And I'll just add one more thing. We have to remember this. If you remember just one thing from this, remember this. The Earth is like the human body. If our inner temperature goes up by 2 to 3 degrees, we have a fever. Well, it's exactly what's happening with the Earth. When the Earth temperature goes up 2 to 3 degrees, the Earth is running a fever. It is sick, and that is what's happening. That's how sensitive it is. Looking at that graphic, that's how much rain we've had over the past 30 days in California. It's basically zero in most of California.
So against that backdrop, you have the president who tweeted that poor forest management is to blame for some of these fires. Is there some validity to what the president is saying?
Well, you know, they do manage the forests. Now, these fires are happening right along what is essentially the urban and rural areas, so it's not exactly in the center of the forest. You know, human encroachment plays a part. Humans are living in places where they haven't lived before. And yes, some management could help, but you know, it's contrary to what you might think. The more we take away these older trees, we log these older trees, those are the trees that have the most wisdom. They're the ones that are used to these fires. They're the ones that have been around for, you know, decades, if not hundreds of years. They know how to fend off fires. So when you talk about forest management, it's not logging. You don't want to take away the old trees that have the most wisdom. You want to get rid of the brush. And so what they try to do is they try to get rid of the driest brush. Yeah, you can certainly do more management, but it costs more money to do so. So I would say that there's a small element of that, but the larger element is definitely the climate change angle and the fact that people are encroaching on what used to be areas that weren't inhabited before.
Sounds like a number of factors at play here.
For sure.
Jeff Berardelli, thanks so much, Jeff.
You're welcome.